For while the emperor was being greeted amid much pomp and ceremony, welcomed as a good friend and important ally of Britain's, a short distance away on the Mall, hundreds of World War II veterans were preparing to demonstrate, recalling not friendship, but the darkest moments of Japanese atrocities in the Far East. These survivors are demanding a fuller apology from Tokyo and proper compensation. It was to be a public snub by the very people who normally have the greatest respect towards such ceremony. As the Emperor's horse-drawn carriage passed down the Mall, both he and the Queen must have glimpsed the veterans.
Here it comes now.
As they turned their backs on the Emperor and whistled and booed the procession. At one stage, a Japanese flag was set alight, but overwhelmingly this was a dignified protest by those who had endured the starvation and slave labor camps of the Japanese, and who feel the Japanese government has never atoned for those crimes.
I think it's a very emotional moment, and the crowd said it all. They said it for England against the Japanese.
I'm quite happy it went off peacefully. That is the main thing. But unless they do something, it's a wasted effort, isn't it?
The Emperor arrived at Buckingham Palace for lunch and to be awarded the Order of the Garter, Britain's highest order of chivalry, apparently unruffled by the protest and expressing sympathy for those who suffered at the hands of the Japanese.
The Emperor took it in his stride, but in so doing, I would imagine that he had in his heart and mind some warm feelings that he expressed, the feeling of understanding and compassion.
Those close to the Emperor say he saw and respected the protest. And later tonight, here at Buckingham Palace, he will express his profound sympathy with the veterans. But the former POWs say personal remorse is not the issue. Rather, what they want is a formal, unambiguous apology and adequate compensation. This afternoon, keen to move the visit on towards the theme of reconciliation between former enemies, the Emperor laid a wreath at Westminster Abbey at the tomb of the unknown soldier. He is said this evening to be moved by the dignity and conduct of Britain's war veterans. Robert Moore, ITN, Central London.
Over now to our political correspondent. Hugh, what is the Emperor like?
And a 4-foot section falls off your wing. According to the pilot of last night's flight to New York, it's not really a problem. You just turn round and come home. Flight 003 ended up back on the tarmac at Heathrow last night, barely 3 hours after leaving for New York. A piece the size of a coffee table had fallen from the wing with a judder that startled passengers.
You could definitely feel there was something wrong with the aircraft, and the captain took it fairly safely, dropped the speed. He tried to make it as smooth as possible, but whenever he accelerated, you could feel the vibration.
Yeah, I'm on my way over to play a golf tournament in America, and now I lost a day of practice, but at least I didn't lose my life.
Unlike most other planes, Concorde has no horizontal stabilizers on its tail fin. Instead, it has 16 control surfaces, called elevons, on its wings and on its tail. Concorde pilot and flight manager Mike Bannister explained to me that it was a triangular part of one of these elevons that fell off.
This is the first incident of this nature that British Airways has had in its Concorde operating, the first time we've had this sort of a problem with what we call an elevon, and we anticipate that what we'll be doing now is looking at the rest of the fleet and making sure they're in tip-top condition.
It's highly unlikely last night's problem is related to the age of Concorde. It has been flying now for more than 20 years, but each plane flies only a few hours every day, so in aircraft years, it's still a relative youngster. Lawrence McGinty, ITN, at Heathrow Airport.
The two British nurses target militant Islamic extremists. Our Europe correspondent Bill Neely reports.
Planned for months, it began at dawn, it was over in minutes. French police raiding dozens of homes and detaining more than 50 men. The police say they are all Islamic militants whom they suspect of planning to attack the World Cup. Most were detained in Paris, where Scotland will play the tournament's opening game. Several detained in Marseille, where England will play Tunisia. Detectives say they weren't acting on any specific threat to the tournament, and only one gun was found, along with false identity papers and around £100,000 in cash. Similar raids were carried out in Belgium, Italy, Germany and Switzerland. France's anti-terrorist police are on high alert and have been training for months, fearing that bombers and gunmen linked to Algerian fundamentalists will try to target the World Cup. Just a few weeks ago, they found a bomb similar to those that exploded in Paris 3 years ago. In those attacks, linked to Algerian fundamentalists, dozens were killed and injured. The 53 men arrested in France can be questioned for up to 4 days. One was detained close to the stadium where Scotland will play Brazil on June the 10th. Bill Neely, ITN, Brussels.
14 British tourists were injured today when their coach veered off the road just south of the Portuguese capital, Lisbon. Their driver had to swerve sharply to avoid a crash between 2 lorries ahead of him. The coach overturned and a car behind smashed into it. The threat of travel chaos loomed over next